Building something great is scary. Taking a chance dreams is one of the most difficult things that you can do. And doing something with chance that you might fail is what some people might consider their worst nightmare. But you have to remember, you're not falling down. You're falling forward. Today, I'll be taking you through some of the things I learned listening to the founder of Amicole on Emigrate's podcast. First, you may be asking, what is Amicole? Inspired by Senegal, born in Harlem, New York, Amicole is a Black-owned beauty brand featuring clean beauty formulas made for melanated skin, founded by Diarra. Amicole rose to prominence in 2020-2021 from being on Oprah's favorite things list, in the hands of every melanated beauty influencer, and eventually ending up in Sephora, focusing on representing those who are often underrepresented when it comes to beauty and making the beauty space more inclusive and targeted towards specific customers. So, a few months ago, Diarra announced that Amicole will be closing its doors forever in a lovely piece in the Cuts where she talks about why Amicole will be closing down and what that entails in the beauty space. And after that, she went on the Aspire podcast to talk to Epic Read about everything that involves founding and eventually closing down one of the most beloved beauty brands of the 2020s. And I took some notes about what I learned listening to those two lovely women talk about founding a business and the eventual dissolution of Amicole that has come to be. So there are 8 things that I took from that conversation, and I'm going to be sharing them with you and talking about them and telling you the story behind it and how that applies to you failing forward and not falling down. I know everyone says this, and every entrepreneur who started a business tells you this, but it's one of the most important things that takes you or propels you forward. That is believing in yourself and starting.
Absolutely. You have to try. I think the hardest thing, I had this idea in 2014. I didn't launch until 2021.
So, Diarra talks about starting Amicole from her Harlem apartment in New York City and how the business came to be. She had worked in the luxury beauty space for a very long time in many executive roles, and in 2019-2020 she began to build Amicole because she noticed the gap and decided that she wanted to take the chance and fill the gap for her consumer base. She believed in what she was building and she started, even though it was small, and started basically on her bedroom floor and building this business. She believed in herself and began, even though when she wanted to start, she was looking for investors, looking for people who would invest in this business, but got a lot of no's and decided to start anyway. We might tell ourselves that we're not ready, that we need certain things to be able to begin, but you have to just start. The first step is to actually start, to take the step forward and move to start that thing, that business, that endeavor that you really want to start. That belief in oneself is the most important thing when it comes to starting this business. Once you believe in yourself and you start to do it, things fall in line, which brings me to the second lesson. It takes multiple no's, but things can change overnight. Diarra spoke about how she got over 150 no's from investors telling her no, that they're not investing in this business, to all of a sudden being inundated with calls left, right, and center from people who wanted to invest in the business, and that happened in the blink of an eye, or so it seems. Obviously, she started the business and was working towards getting this business up and running, and suddenly it was the middle of the pandemic. She was working hard on this business, and somehow, some way, they ended up on Oprah's favorite things list, and that's where things began to change. Suddenly, there were calls from investors who were all too ready to give her their money to invest in her business and this dream, and all of a sudden, Amicole was everywhere. But if she wasn't ready, if she hadn't continued grinding and working towards this dream that she had and this vision of Amicole that she had, she would not have been ready for the opportunity. She was prepared to take the step and take the leap when the opportunity came. Which brings me to my third lesson. Know when to pivot, drive forward, or take a step back. Diarra spoke about building her team. Building the team that started Amicole and building the team that would help grow Amicole. She mentioned how in hindsight she wished she could have taken the steps to build the team that grew Amicole a lot earlier, and sort of taking the step that would have probably saved, maybe in an alternate universe, saved Amicole a lot earlier if she did, because there's the founding team and then there's the growth team, and she wished she had moved from that founding team to the growth team a lot sooner to be able to establish the business or grow the business a lot easier, or at least had the business be more sustainable a lot earlier. And knowing that there was a need for change was something that she wished she had known earlier and not just waited on. She wished she had known how to take different steps at different times, because maybe those decisions would have saved Amicole at the end of the day. But you don't know what you don't know. And she also said she wished she knew when to slow down the business, or at least not give into the fast-paced nature that can sometimes overwhelm founders. Which brings me to the fourth lesson: build slowly despite the pressure. There was a lot of pressure from investors and people in the industry kind of pressuring the expansion of Amicole, which she kind of accounts to why Amicole has eventually been dissolved as a business. And she talks about specifically the expansion into Sephora. She wished that if she had known, or at least if she had the foresight, if she had known basically that she wouldn't have taken Sephora's first offer of expanding into over 500 stores, over I think 1,000 stores across the US, and she would have done like specific stores in specific markets to be able to understand her customer base more, because she felt like that's pressure from investors to continue to expand, to continue to get into more physical stores, really did speed up the solution of Amicole, because they were spread a little too thin, and some places were doing really great, but some places were not doing good at all. And she wished that she could have slowed down that and taken a step back and understood what was going on in the particular target areas that were doing well and what wasn't doing well in these other areas of Sephora, and not just jumped straight into it because investors were hounding at her to do such a thing. And that's very important when you're building a business. You need to know when to slow down and build slowly despite the pressure, because investors want one thing: money, and they may not believe completely in the vision, but they believe in the money that they would get, and their bottom line is the money. So you always have to come back to center and figure out and understand why you actually started the business, and not just run rampant because investors want you to, which is something that's very difficult to do, especially when you have taken these people's money, and investors always want to have a say in what's going on in business. But taking a step back and building slowly despite pressure is something that she had learned from this experience. Number 5, failure isn't the end, it's direction. So there is a world where Amicole may come back and we might have our beloved beauty brand back on the shelves, but right now she's taking the lessons that she's learned, and obviously she's still dissolving the business, because there's a lot that goes into not just starting a business but also ending a business. When things don't go our way, it's very easy to decide that this isn't just for me, but she's taking these lessons and asking herself what they're trying to teach her as a founder and a business owner and someone who works in this business space. So she's taking the understanding and not just taking it and letting it run off her, but she's introspecting on what she can do and directing that energy of what the dissolution of Amicole means, and understanding that it's not indicative of her value as a person or a founder, but a good learning lesson. Because when you fail, you don't fail down to the level you were, you fail above where you were before. So if you're here, you start here and you get here. When you fail, you don't fail and fail back to the level you were. You fail just a little bit below where you were. You actually fall ahead because you're learning from the failure and the experience that the failure has brought. Because at the end of the day, what people consider failure is just a learning lesson. And that leads into lesson 6. You learn more from the drop than the climb. Yes, you learn as you climb and you grow, but the process of failing or the process of dropping, you're learning a lot more than you would if you just took the lessons from the climb. We always glamorize the rise, the glow up, the shine, but we never really talk about the aspects of this that are not exactly that glamorous, which is the failure, the drop, the unexpected fails. But when things don't work out, you learn about the humility, the patience, resilience that it takes to build something and get back up when you fall. So that's also something that I learned from this conversation. Number 7, grace over grit. There's always this pressure to immediately get back up when you fall, but sometimes falling forward means resting a bit to rise again. Right now, Diarra isn't rushing to start another business or start another adventure. She's taking her time, giving herself grace, enjoying life as it comes, because yes, you deserve the grace that comes along with failure. Yeah, sometimes you just have to take the L, learn and rest a bit before you get back up to start again, because if you just get back up immediately, you risk injuring yourself, and that's not something that you want. So she's taking the time to understand herself, enjoy life, and enjoy the things that are going on around her, enjoy her kids, enjoy her family, and enjoy her time and peace that she hasn't had since Amikole blew up. So yes, it's time for her to take a break, and she understands that you have to give yourself grace sometimes. The last and final lesson is redefine what it means to move forward. So in this process of dissolving Amikole, she talks about how difficult it is to actually dissolve a business and not just moving forward onto the next thing, but she's moving forward into understanding herself, taking checks and understanding what went wrong, what didn't go wrong, how great the business was, how the failures have affected her, and not just moving on to the next thing. Sometimes it's not always visible growth, it's deep growth, and progress isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet and it's a silent whisper. So if you're in a point in your life where everything seems like it's falling apart, or you feel like you're falling down, just remember, you're not falling down, you're falling forward. Let me know if you like this video and if you're going to watch the podcast with Diarra, and what your thoughts are on the message from these two amazing women founders who understand that it's not always going to be perfect. It's not always going to be great the first time around. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anyways, have a great day. Have a great life. Until next time, live beautifully.